Hi, I'm Jeff Walters, and welcome to The Minutes. And thanks for listening today. It's great to have you along on The Minutes for the week of April the 22nd, 2024. This is a City of Thunder Bay podcast. The Minutes takes a look at what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this past week. On this episode, we'll have a rundown of what happened at this week's City Council meeting and an interview with Cynthia Olsen, the Director of Strategy and Engagement. We'll hear about the designated encampment report to Council in just a couple of minutes. But first, though, Council was delayed last night. Council met in closed session late in the afternoon, with that meeting running quite long. It was because of a couple of decisions that had to be made last night due to timing requirements. Committee of the Whole started just after 8 p.m. That's about an hour and a half after it was scheduled to start. But once the meeting was started, councillors approved a change in their remuneration on Monday. The change is in line with the established practice of raising council salaries by half of the inflation rate. That works out to an increase of 1.05%, retroactive to January 1st of this year. Since 2020, Council has kept its increases at half of the rate of inflation, with the goal of keeping in line with comparator municipalities. The total financial impact of this increase is about $5,600. A number of property tax changes were approved on Monday night, dealing with when the value of a property changes. If the property's value changes because of fire, demolition, or because of repairs or renovations that took place for more than 3 months, the amount of tax owing can change. Council approved about $23,000 in changes on Monday. Council got an update on the city's annual safety review. The review tells Council about critical safety incidents and inspections over the past year. In 2023, 6 critical injuries to staff occurred. 2 involved a loss of consciousness, while 4 were slip and falls, resulting in a fracture. The slip and falls took place on wet pool decks, bus stairs, and off-site locations. The overall number of reported safety incidents went down by about 5% from 2022, although the number of lost time claims, that's where an employee was off work, went down. The costs of WSIB insurance increased. Administration says that's because of long-term lost time claims due to mental stress injuries, and those are usually by emergency services workers. City Council received a report on Monday night regarding designated encampments in Thunder Bay. It was an extensive discussion on designated encampments, the role of the city, financial impacts, and what service providers can do at a designated site. An encampment is a place where people without permanent shelter could live, usually in a tent or other temporary structure. Administration will manage matters like designated encampments with a human rights-based approach, which are guided by legal precedent. This means that people can't be just evicted from an area. The report doesn't specify any locations where a designated encampment would be created. That will come in a future report. The report, though, does note that people in encampments have concerns about safety, access to toilets and showers, and want to be in locations where they can access services. The results of a public survey, also answered by people who live in encampments, show that vacant lots may be the best areas for a designated location. Respondents suggested that locations near parks with programming and schools should not be considered. The report also notes that more funding would be needed for an encampment outreach team. This would be more than the current amount budgeted of $20,000, but how that would be funded has not yet been determined. Administration will report back to Council at the end of June with recommendations for designated encampment locations, along with potential services and supports being offered at the site. We'll hear more about the designated encampments report in just a couple of minutes when Cynthia Olsen, the Director of Strategy and Engagement, joins me in the studio. Council agreed to enter into a number of service agreements with non-profit organizations to help deliver some services. The agreement is for 1 year, and the money distributed to the groups is part of the 2024 budget. Lakehead Social Planning Council will receive $50,000 as part of the poverty reduction strategy, along with another $15,000 for the incident reporting and referral services. Age-Friendly Thunder Bay will also receive $50,000, and Roots Community Food Center will also get $50,000 as part of the Thunder Bay and Area Food Strategy. The groups report back annually on the progress that they're making on each of the programs. The creation of a nuisance bylaw by city administration is off the table after it was removed from the outstanding list on Monday night. In 2020, Council asked administration to look into writing a bylaw that could help with concerns presented by the public when it came to nuisance activities. In 2021, administration said a nuisance bylaw could have unintended consequences and could have a bigger impact on the marginalized and homeless population. That same year, administration was directed by council to take a more comprehensive look at bylaws. Administration says new bylaws such as the Clean and Clear Yards and municipal standards for property bylaws have nuisance clauses, and they don't allow for litter, debris, or other hazards in private yards. Administration recommends not using bylaws, but targeted strategies to deal with issues that would have been covered by the nuisance bylaw, such as homelessness, loitering, and addictions. And that's a wrap as to what happened at Council this week. For more information on anything that happens at Council, please visit our website, thunderbay.ca/council. You see them in a couple of locations in Thunder Bay. I'm talking about encampments. Usually they have some tents or other temporary structures, and it's where people are living. One concept being explored by the city is having designated encampments in Thunder Bay. It's an area where people without a home could put up that tent and maybe have some services also provided. On Monday night, Council received a report on the possibility of designated encampments in Thunder Bay. Cynthia Olsen is the Director of Strategy and Engagement for the city. Cynthia, thanks for coming into the Minute Studio today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So, the report that was brought to Council talks about some possibilities when it comes to designated encampments. But before we kind of get into the nitty-gritty of all that, how did this even all begin?
Well, it began actually during the height of the pandemic, where we started to see encampments. Encampments always existed in our community, but they were much more hidden and out of, direct public view. But they started to come out a lot more frequently. And, we were already collaborating with multiple community partners to, provide services and supports to people experiencing homelessness, in particular in relation to COVID. And so, there was a pretty significant encampment that took place at Sunny's Gas Bar. I think most of the community is aware of that. And so multiple community partners came together to try and rally around and find housing solutions before displacing anybody. And, a local service provider did receive some funding and received the ability to actually move people into hotel spaces, and that really kind of set the path for us. And we brought forward a report to council shortly after that about piloting a model that would bring dignity to individuals that were staying unsheltered outdoors.
And one thing I want to mention that it's kind of mentioned a few times in the report is you're trying to bring a solution that is, and correct me if I'm wrong, human-based, or I guess takes human needs into account. I guess maybe explain exactly what that means. Yeah,
it's that for sure. It's providing dignity and respect and meeting individuals' needs. But it's also, more recently, we brought a report last year where we made some recommendations, and council did, by resolution, approve those and then directed us to take a human rights-based approach. And so there has been some legal rulings in Ontario that, found things like bylaws and forcibly evicting individuals who have no other place to go, that there aren't truly accessible sheltering options within the community, that it actually violates protected right under the charter. So that was the approach that we started to take. No forcible evictions, and last night I shared at council, that didn't mean that people didn't move if there were, safety concerns, et cetera, but we worked directly with those individuals and the service providers to find viable options and help support people to move to different locations in the community.
So I guess, why do we even need a designated encampment area? We have a couple spots already where you see encampments around the city, but why have a designated space for people?
Yeah, so really one thing that we tried to, share with council last night is, there's not much research on designating encampments and that type of potentially structured response. This is new territory for municipalities across Canada, across our province. And so there is a bit of unknown. What we do know from our past experience thus far has been, it has been easier for service providers to stay in contact with individuals if they're not moving all over the place and moving around and then potentially being kind of lost to the system. So there is an increased potential for them to actually be connected to the right types of services and supports and to housing. Ultimately, the end goal is housing that meets individuals' needs. And given that we don't have enough of the right kind of housing to meet people's needs who are experiencing chronic and unsheltered homelessness, encampments aren't going to go away. And so is this an opportunity to help put a little bit more structure and predefined supports to meeting individuals' needs while, services are being brought to them and people are waiting for the appropriate housing to come available.
Now, I know no decision has been made yet on, how this would actually all work, or locations and all that sort of stuff. But what would this site or sites potentially look like or potentially have?
Yeah, so that's, really good question, because that was part of the consultation we did with community, with people with lived experience, with community partners and Indigenous leaders. There were some common themes amongst all of them. And when we asked the question, what types of services or support should be either on site or nearby, highest would be things like access to washrooms, running water, power and electricity, lighting, security. And so when we come back to council, we will have to put some costing to all of those, and whether or not they're fully embedded in the locations, or that they're accessible nearby. So we didn't define that when we asked people, but those were the general themes. We also heard at council last night a consideration for communication like Wi-Fi, being able to have that kind of access. And that was something that, the people with lived experience survey came back saying, close to communications, because communications is very critical for them to stay in contact with their workers or other things that they're trying to do to, access housing or other types of supports.
One thing that I found really interesting was you also spoke to people with experience in encampments, and you got an answer on where they don't want to be, and it kind of meshed with the results of the general public survey. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, and I'll just preface, we really relied on our community partners who are doing the direct service work and have relationships with individuals to do those surveys. And we're super thankful for the voices of the folks that, did respond and provided us input. And yeah, there was alignment around not being close to schools, not being close to playgrounds, for example. And those were similar themes that we heard from the public, from community partners and Indigenous leaders as well, if you're looking at considering what types of locations would be most suitable to support an encampment.
How do you deal with public opposition to a site like this or to a program like this? There's always a segment of the population that says, we should do nothing. We should just leave it alone. How do you kind of answer that question?
So I would say that I don't think that our public survey actually said we should do nothing.
No, and it doesn't. I'm just saying that, we will hear opposition voices. How do you counter that? Because the survey was very much in favor of having designated sites.
Well, it was, but it wasn't everybody, right? So it was more than half. So the majority of people did support us exploring this. There was a good, subsection that was unsure, and they just felt like they needed more information. A lot of those had to do with where would those locations be, what types of services and supports would you actually be able to meet the residents' needs, and those that weren't supportive. There may be opportunity to assuage some of the fears, which are things like safety and security of all that would be impacted, including the individuals who are staying unsheltered and community members that are housed, recognizing that everybody is a community member here. The other thing is that there's support for other types of options. Really, encampments are not a solution. Housing is a solution. At this time, we don't have enough housing that's meeting people's needs, and so people are outside. And so what do we do in the interim to increase health and safety for all?
There was a decision made last night at council to bring back some information in June. I guess where does this kind of go from that June date, or what are you going to bring back in June?
So we were directed to come back with a more robust actual plan. Like, what would this look like? Where are the locations? What are the parameters that's acceptable, not acceptable? What are the financing and liability needs? So that will be a lot of work to be able to bring that back. But I think we set a really good foundation given the engagement that we did just this past month. It gives us a bit of a framework to start building upon.
Cynthia, really appreciate you coming in today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Cynthia Olsen is the Director of Strategy and Engagement for the City of Thunder Bay. She joined me here in the Minutes studio. And a big thanks for listening to the Minutes this week. Of course, if you want more information about City Council, agendas, or minutes, visit thunderbay.ca/council. If you want to listen to past episodes or maybe provide some feedback, visit thunderbay.ca/theminutes. You can also find the Minutes wherever you get your podcasts. That includes Apple, Google, and Amazon podcasts, along with Spotify, plus our website as well. I'm Jeff Walters. Thanks for listening this week. We'll chat again in 2 weeks. Make it a great day.